Hi, how's everybody doing? It looks really different with all of these seats filled than it did last night in rehearsal. So I'm just going to spot somebody and just look at you like the whole time. So thank you so much for coming and for staying through the snow and through this really long day of brilliance and innovative ideas. I want to share with you some of my passion, and I'm passionate about a whole lot of things, which I think is very similar to what a lot of people in this room are, and that's why we're here today, right? And so as I was trying to think of kind of how to frame my talk today, I was reading this book, and it was a book actually that one of my colleagues recommended to me called Cognitive Surplus. Anybody read that book by Clay Shirky? So it's a book that talks about this idea of the participatory culture that we live in because of Web 2.0 and social media and all these things, and how we're able to use innovation and technology now to be able to actually communicate with each other and engage in dialogues with each other in ways that all of that kind of mind power and brain power weren't being used, and we were just kind of sitting in front of the TV watching, whatever. And so there was a quote in that book that really stood out to me. And I actually didn't read the book that the quote is from, but I was reading a book anyway, so I'm not discrediting myself as a library person. And the quote is, the quote is from Kurt Vonnegut, and it says, "The worst thing that could possibly happen to anyone is to not be used for anything by anyone." And when I read that line, it just really struck me. I was on the 36 bus coming from my home in Southeast DC going to work at Gallery Place. And I thought, that's it. I mean, that to me really speaks about what the human existence is like, because we don't exist outside of the context and outside of relationship to other people. We don't really become fully ourselves unless we're engaged with other people, because it's in the being used that we fully become who we are. And so that's kind of what I want to center my talk around today. And I want to talk specifically about using teens. And here I mean using in the most powerful and the most positive connotation of that word, because sometimes we talk about using people like manipulating them. But I'm talking about using people to really fully see their greatness and to fully really get a hold of their brilliance. Because our society is truly in crisis right now. And we need people to be brilliant, and we need every person to be brilliant in order to heal this society. And so one of the things that, actually, let me back up a little bit. There's a 50% or 50% or higher unemployment rate among 16 to 19-year-olds in DC. And that rate is actually higher in wards 7 and 8. There was a report that came out from the Brookings Institute a couple of weeks ago that was talking about this. That is a serious problem. If you think about that, 50% of this whole population of people is being untapped. They're just kind of sitting at home. What are they doing? What are they getting into? And more importantly, how is that mind power that they're not using and that heart that they're not using, how is that not helping our society? Like, that's a huge loss that we're suffering as humanity for not really engaging those young people. So truth number one about using teens. I'm totally not using this thing. First truth is, and this is kind of a no-brainer, it seems, but in order to really use something, you have to know that it's there in the first place. So in order for me to put on my shoes this morning, I had to know that the boots were in the hallway. Eat breakfast, I had to know I had cereal on top of the fridge. So you think about, okay, in order to use something, you have to know it exists. But about a year and a half ago, there was a device that was installed 2 blocks away from where we're sitting right now at Gallery Place, the entrance of the 7th and H Gallery Place exit. And it was a device that emitted this high-frequency sound that was very annoying, and it was called the Mosquito. Anybody heard of that? And so the Mosquito, the installation of this device caused a lot of controversy, because the Mosquito was intended to be annoying only to ears on people between the ages of 12 and 26. And they installed it specifically to get rid of the teenagers who were taking over Gallery Place. And so store owners got together and different people got together and said, we need to just get rid of these people. They shouldn't be here. They're scaring away our business. They're making things bad for us. We don't want to deal with them. We don't want to see them. They should not exist here. Let's get rid of them. So of course, and thank God, a lot of mobilizing was done in the community to get this device removed. But I think that sentiment probably still exists, because there's lots of teens in Gallery Place. And when they're on the metro, they're loud and they're being obnoxious and they're yelling, and you're trying to listen to your iPod and have a smooth and tranquil ride home from work because you had a crappy day or whatever. And here are these daggone teens with their pants hanging down off their butts and their dreadlocks covering their faces, and they're just being jerks, right? Get rid of them. So that is us not seeing them, because these teens are truly brilliant and they are beautiful. And it is our responsibility to really connect and engage with them. So, I kind of lost my place. So going back to this idea about participatory culture, right, in this book that I was reading, I do a lot of work with social media because of this project that we're doing at the library called Youth 202, which I'm going to kind of talk about later. But I use Facebook, and I love Facebook. I think I might be pseudo-addicted to it, and like my work productivity might be slacking just a little bit because, like I'll write a little status update, and then like I won't wait a day later to see if anybody liked it. Like, I'm back on that joint like 2 minutes later, like, oh, because I thought it was like really quirky and witty and like people want to like this, right? So, and I mean, am I the only one? I don't know. Probably not, but so, and the teens use this too, right? Like, they post pictures of themselves, and it's so funny because sometimes we're in the library, and the teen space is full of computers, and of course, the computers are all full of teens, and they're on Facebook. They might be sitting right next to each other at the computers. They're not talking to each other. They're talking to each other through Facebook. So they'll post something, oh, shit, no, you didn't say that. And then they'll type something back, oh, no, So it's like, they really like that, right? So, but it's that idea of they're seeing each other, and I'm getting seen and validated when somebody likes my status or when somebody comments. That is that whole thing of like seeing us. So that's what I mean when I say we need to, in order to use something, you have to know it exists, because that is very validating and affirming to us as people. So the next point is kind of related to that. And it's this idea that teenagers want to love. And I say that they want to love as very different from they want to be loved, because everybody wants to be loved. And some people can't be loved because of whatever the circumstances of their life are. But everybody can love, and everybody wants to love. But I think that there's this conception that teens are really apathetic, don't really care about anything except themselves, where they're going to wear that day. And kind of on the extreme of that, it's that teens want to hurt me, like they want to harm me. And especially because of the perception of them in media and how media really spins this ugly, awful story of brutal teens. But teens actually do want to love. And they badly want to love. And I'll give you an example of this. So at the library, we also have this really big population of transgender teens who come in. And they completely defy any kind of gender roles or stereotypes that I've ever met, because they're like transgender thugs. Like I'm dead serious. Like they are these hardcore transgender thugs, and they'll roll up into the library with like skinny jeans and midriff tops on and mohawks. And you've probably seen them if you're walking around gallery. You probably see them. They're always hanging out on this. I see a nod right there. Like they're always hanging out on the steps of the portrait gallery there. So they come into the library because they're not in school. Probably most of them are homeless because their families just can't deal with who they are. They don't have jobs because they don't have skills because they haven't gone to school, right? And so they're disconnected. So they come into the library. And actually on Thursday, there was this big crew who came in. And kind of the ringleader was this woman. I didn't know her name at this time, but I saw her. She was having a bad day. She was, using the B word a lot and, just kind of making things a little kind of tense in the room. But I saw her, and I saw her again on Friday. She was in the hallway, and I'm walking down the hallway, and I see her, and literally, this is what she did. She was like, and then she stuck out her tongue. She was like, and this is how she stared at me, like as I'm walking down the hallway. And first of all, it was so ridiculous. I was just like, if I laugh, I'm going to be in trouble. But, so I walked up, I kind of got like, I guess as far as the red carpet start line is from here. And I went up to her, and I did what she was doing to me. And I was like, and then I said, and then I laughed. And immediately, like that whole thing was just diffused. And I walked up to her, and I put my hand on her arm, and I was like, how you doing, sweetie? I was like, are you having a better day today? Because yesterday was kind of hard, right? And she was like, it's always hard. And I mean, whatever she was going through. And so then I said, what's your name? She was like, Aaliyah. And I was like, all right, I'm Rebecca. Nice to see you here, So that's what that whole interaction right there, that was love. That was her loving me. And I'm going to venture to call that love. Because like when I see little kids on the train and they smile, and and I'm, that's love right there. That's an exchange of love. So teens really want to love, and not for whatever reasons, there's lots of reasons why it's hard for them to show love because of the circumstances they're coming from, right? Like, take these transgender teens. Like, do you know how hard it is for them? Like, can you imagine coming from Ward 8, like the thick of the hood, right? Being gay, first of all, or okay, there's a whole gender politics, like I don't know, is gay, transgender, whatever. But I'm not going to get into that because I don't know that. But can you imagine just kind of being who they are? And where in a neighborhood where being a sissy can literally get you dead, it could get you killed. So here they are being this other, completely different kind of person in this hood where just being themselves could get them killed. They have to take on this whole other way of being. So they have to have this thick skin, this defense mechanism. And we can diffuse that just by seeing them, like I was talking about before, seeing them heart to heart. And letting them love us. And all it really takes is just, walking up to them, I wouldn't suggest you just walk up to anybody and put your hand on their arm. But what I'm saying is it's easy for us to enable them to love. And when they love, beautiful things happen. And so that's the last truth. So teens do great things when we expect great things of them. And I know that one of the earlier presenters this morning was the scientist, Paula. And she was talking about, she showed that slide where like young women who were about to take a test in physics performed a lot better when they were told they were going to perform better. Remember that one? So it's the exact same concept. So when you have high expectations, people perform to those expectations. And so that is really powerful. And I was reading this other book about skunkworks. And I didn't know what a skunkworks was. But it's like this thing in corporations where really brilliant people get called together to come into this kind of retreat environment, and they create innovative ideas that are going to change their corporations and make their corporations a lot more money. And I was like, well, damn, like everybody deserves to have a skunkworks. Like why is it only the brilliant creative people who get to do this thing? Like every classroom needs to be a skunkworks. Like every kind of environment that we in needs to be one of those environments where people feel free and they feel confident to be able to really share and engage with each other in dialogue and create change. So last summer, I was working with some teens through our summer youth employment program at the library, and this is a program that really engages teens from all over the city, regardless of their academic background, income level, all that. And we were having this conversation about third space. So I was asking them, rather than asking them what would their ideal library be like, because that's kind of hard to conceive of if you've never really been in a library and never really used one. So I was like, what's this third space, this place that's not home, that's not school? What does this ideal third space look like to you? And so they're like, oh, we could do yoga. I was like, word? Like, that's what you want to do? Okay, fine. Okay, yoga, like, oh, we would learn how to drive. We could take our driver's test after going there. We learn how to cook. I would learn how to do laundry, So they're going through this whole thing, and one of the teens was like, you know what? He's like, y'all adults, when you want to go out and do something, you can just pick up the Washington Post, you can pick up the city paper, you can look through it and find things for you to do, like events going on. If you want a job, you can just open the paper and there's a job there. He was like, I need that. He was like, teens don't have that. There's no place that we can go to get information that's for us. I'm trying to find out where to take my girl when I have $5 in my pocket on a Friday night. And I thought, dang, like you're right, like I would want that too. And why don't you have that, And then the next thing I thought was, well, why don't we create that? Because we can create that totally. Like we have the means right now because of all of this great innovation and the father of the internet up here. Thank you, because now we have the tools to do that, right? So I could have just kind of kept it there, and I could have gone into my office and called my librarian friends and been like, yo, there's this great idea, like let's get together, let's do a working group and, like create this thing. And I was like, okay, but if I did that, or if the other librarians and I did that, we would be taking away an opportunity from the youth to be able to do that. So why don't we empower the young people to be able to do that for themselves? So, we created Youth 202. And so got a little grant, partnered with an organization called Radio Roots. And now we have this mechanism, this brilliant thing where it's a youth-researched, youth-produced, youth-post-produced, and youth-maintained radio podcast, blog / website, and Twitter feed. And so the young people research. They comb the Twitter sphere, and we've gone through information literacy lessons so they can kind of know what's valid information and how do you tell if information has a bias, and how to check links and how to shorten links and all those kinds of things. So they comb through the Twitter sphere, they go through all of the different community-based organizations that we follow, and they're identifying those community-based organizations through other community scanning processes, and they're tweeting information for them about them. And our only stipulations are that the information, that the event, if it's an event, has to be free, of course, or low cost, like under $5, because, you know, homie has to find out where to take his girl for $5 on a Friday night. And we also want to make sure that all the stuff that we tweet about is accessible, because why put it up there if you have to have an income level that, you know, you would have to pay some money in order to do it. So we want to make sure everything is accessible. So the teens also are researching people that they can interview. So say we go through this whole process where they identify issues. So one girl is like, well, tattoos, I always wonder, like, why are there so many teens now getting tattoos? Meanwhile, she's got like 20 tattoos on her arm. She's like, why are so many teens getting tattoos? Wrote tattoos up on the wall. Well, like a lot of people in my class are bulimic, like they drink, they eat a lot of stuff and they throw up. So we write healthy living up on the wall. And then they go and they do research about these different issues. They find organizations in the community that are working around these issues. They call them, bring them in. We've learned interviewing techniques, so they interview them in the studio about these different things. They write, so they write in and out of their interview pieces to create these really great full radio pieces, post those on the radio podcast. All of the writing and the research they've done goes to creating these small written pieces that go on the blog. All of the community-based organizations that they've referenced are hyperlinked to those organizations so that they can access those. So if a teen goes on and you know, they're thinking about tattoos or whatever, they can go and they can find information about tattoo removal, and they can find information about organizations that do that kind of thing. So it's this very holistic resource. And so that in itself, I mean, that's it's a very intense kind of process, but they're all over it. Like, they are working that joint out. Like sometimes I literally stand back in awe at what it is that they're able to do. And so as an example, like we were actually evaluating websites because they have to create the entire website. So, I mean, not coding it, but like the design of it. So they had to identify what are the different kinds of web pages that they would need. So an About Us page, and of course they were like, on the About Us page, our picture needs to be really, really big at the top. And so then, we need some resources like, you know, like if somebody ran away from home, we need to have a page to put that stuff. What are we going to call that? And then they're like, Youth Truth. Youth Truth, that's a stupid name, you know. So they're dialoguing back and forth. There's a skunk works happening, right? Like, and the things about that, and I'm totally behind on this, so don't even look at that. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Actually, okay, I'm there already, so I may as well talk about it. So what really makes this process work, A, it's inquiry-based. Again, it's coming from issues that they've identified. But B, they talk. So there's not many places where teens can actually talk. Like when they're at school, if they talk, they get penalized. You know, like sometimes when they're at home, nobody wants to talk to them. They don't have anybody who can like sit around the dinner table. Like when I was growing up, my parents and my mom is in the house, woohoo. So like my parents and my brother would sit around the dinner table and we would have these like really great conversations about things. And that was how I developed ideas. That was how I became who I am. A lot of teens don't have that, but in Youth 202, they get and I'm being told to please wrap up. So, so I'll wrap it up. So there's this space. My point is there is this space where teens are loved and they can love. They can show their brilliance. They can think ideas into existence. What they're creating has power and has importance. So they're not just doing something that's going to be shoved away in somebody's notebook at the end of the day and never looked at again. They're creating a resource for themselves that has never been created anywhere else in the country, as far as I've been able to research. You know, somebody else might find it. If you do find it, please email me. And let me know, because I want to connect with those other people that are doing this work. So we have to see them. We have to create the environments for them to be able to love. Because when we do that, they create beautiful things. And they have the solutions to help us heal as a society, because damn sure we need it, right? Peace and love.